Good evening, good evening. May the peace of God be with you. I'm so excited to be with you tonight, even though it's Thursday, dealing with some complications with my technology, but I'm glad to be with you tonight. And I want to start by asking and soliciting some prayer requests on behalf of the Dean's family, the loss of their loved one, Pamela Dean's brother, his name escapes me, and the Dennis family, Suzanne Dennis, and the Dennis family. All those are both families are central and central to Mount Pleasant in the main line, and keep them in your prayers throughout this difficult time. But I am grateful to be sharing with you tonight the last installment of our Accept the Challenge of Discipline. I'm a week or two behind, but we'll be jumping into another uh, attribute or challenge, discipline, vision, courage. Every month will be a new one. So for January, I was led to look at discipline. So I'm coming to the tail end of this tonight, and I want to share some nuggets and some keys and some strategies and look at some examples in the biblical text that we could draw from and glean from. But let's first begin with the word of prayer. Lord, we are so grateful for your love, grace, and mercy that you extend toward us morning by morning. New mercies, we say. And in the times we live in, with the odds stacked against us sometimes and difficulties all around us, we need new mercy every day. Speak to us tonight, those on Facebook, those on YouTube, whenever they'll see this, use us as you said that the Spirit guides us into all truth. So lead us, guide us along the way. Speak to us. We pray in your name. Amen. Discipline is choosing between what we want now and what we want most. Discipline is choosing between what we want now and what we want most. Discipline teaches us to have delayed gratification. I don't need to buy it now. I'll wait till you put it on a sale rack. Discipline teaches us patience. It teaches us to not be so, what's the word I'm looking for? I forget what it is. Let me get my notes. It teaches us to be level-headed, even killed, so that we won't have spur of the moments and live our lives based on truly spontaneity. There is a time for that, for sure, but discipline helps us to harness the spontaneity that we need. And one more time, discipline is choosing between what you want now and what you want most. And getting all the way back to what we talked about a couple months ago, you must be clear on what your priority is. We have to have it clear, signed, sealed, and delivered clear. So we won't have this confusion about what we want now, what we want most. Our discipline can be easily undermined. Procrastination, distractions, lack of motivation, and poor time management. All of these undermine, attack our attempts to be disciplined. That's why it's a day to day, moment to moment practice. That's why I liken it to Psalms 1. Meditate upon the law day and night. It suggests to us in Psalms 1, whatever we do, it takes day and night. I only think of you on two occasions, the deal written by Babyface used to sing day and night. So it takes constant practice. Apostle Paul writes in Romans 12, be transformed by the renewing of your mind, this ongoing process. So this idea of discipline, and not discipline to show off and stun on people like I'm better than you. Not like that. But discipline that allows us to live our best lives and make better decisions and have the kind of creativity and intellectual acuity that's needed to be our best selves for our church, our community, and our families. But one key that I thought about is procrastination stems from this. In fact, I'm going too fast. Let me get five keys. Uh, five, no, five destructive results of a lack of discipline. These are just five that I worked with when we are not at our best disciplined selves. We'll have a lack of a routine. That's key. People who do not have a regular schedule for daily activities will have inconsistent sleep patterns, mealtime, work study hours, and time for play. If you don't have this routine, you'll be constantly grabbing, constantly moving, constantly trying to fit things in. And it leads to you not having a feng shui life, meaning having an order. Now, I'm not trying to make us all military sergeants, and this has to be like this, but a routine is critical for us to be at our best selves because we can't just live life by the seat of our pants. You can't achieve anything without discipline. When you look at the greatest athletes, it takes discipline. Just so moved by watching Kobe Bryant's story and the discipline he had as a teenager shaped his whole professional career. Like when a lot of his contemporaries was out partying, buying cars, drinking, and doing whatever, he was the extreme case. He didn't, in his playing days, he didn't go out at all. You never heard those kind of stories about him. But he dedicated 6 days a week to being in the gym, working on his game. And while he was blessed with God given talent, everybody's got God given talent. You can line Kobe up against some of the best players of his era. Cats like Tracy McGrady may have even been more talented than him. But ultimately, he was a greater player because he put more emphasis and practice in the details. Had a routine, and routines are important. Routines keep us spiritually connected. Routine keeps us with a delightful disposition. So routines actually help us to plan out and develop flexible moments. If a person is always flexible and it doesn't nothing has a conflict with their schedule, that's a red sign. So we got to have a routine in such a way that we can make time for flexibility. Let me see if I can give an example. As we look at the book of Daniel, the Old Testament prophet, soothsayer, dream interpreter, representative of the Babylonian government, even though he was a Hebrew by descent, as they were known at that time. Daniel is one of the greatest examples of being disciplined. This is a long runway that I need for Daniel. Uh, Matter of fact, I'll cut it down. I don't need to read all that. Let me, I'll try to read 10 verses, Daniel chapter 6, 1 through 10. It pleased Darius to appoint, he's the king of Babylon, the Babylon. 120 satraps to rule throughout the kingdom. Satrap is like a governor, prime minister, with three administrators over them, and one was Daniel. Daniel was so good that he wasn't even a part of their culture. He wasn't a relative, but his routines and his lifestyle was such that even those who came to colonize him and his people couldn't deny his greatness. Real greatness can never be denied. Real brilliance, creativity can never be denied. It could be overlooked. ignored, but after a while and by, it always raises itself up. And Daniel cannot be denied. See, when we work on ourselves and allow God to work in us and through us, we will never be denied. They can't deny us. The satraps were made accountable to them so the king might not suffer loss. As King Darius is organizi- organizing, organizing his kingdom, Daniel is an essential part of the leadership. Verse 3. Now Daniel so distinguished himself among the administrator and satraps by exceptional qualities that the king set him up over the whole kingdom, sort of like one of his ancestors, Joseph. When Joseph was down there, he kept rising, he kept moving up because of the exceptional qualities. And this is not just something that God gave him. Then you had to work and sweat and grind, have a routine, and have a disciplined life to be noticed by King Darius. It says in verse 4, and the administrators and satraps tried to find grounds for charges against Daniel and his conduct of government affairs, but they were unable to do so. They could not find no corruption in him because he was trustworthy and trustworthy and neither corrupt nor negligent. Finally, these men said, now they're going to gather up against him. Finally, these men says, we'll never find any basis for charges against this man Daniel unless it has something to do with the law of his God. They understood that they couldn't get him on integrity, they couldn't get him on character, but they can get him if they try to set a trap and try to come between Daniel and his God, his way of being, his routine. So the administrators agreed that the king should issue an edict to enforce that anyone who prays to any god, as you keep reading, or human being for the next 30 days will be thrown into the den of lions. Will be the story of Daniel and the lions. And if anybody prays to their God or anything else, anyone else, the result will be you'll be thrown into the lion's den. Verse 10. Now, when Daniel learned that the decree had been published, he went home to his upstairs room where the windows were open toward Jerusalem 3 times a day. He got on his knees and prayed, giving thanks to God, just as he had done before. These men went as a group and found Daniel praying, asking God for help. So they went to the king and spoke to him about the decree. Did you not publish a decree during the next 30 days? So you'd be surprised how people will gather and get groups together to bring people down. And this is what's going on with Daniel. Without getting into all of that, I bring up Daniel to raise this point. They could find Daniel because of his routine 3 times a day, pointed toward Jerusalem, praying to God. And they'll find out later that his routine saved him from a den of lions. When we have healthy routines in our lives, speaking to myself, it could save your life. A routine, a plan, a rubric, a paradigm can save your life. When you read Daniel 6, you find someone who's living a disciplined life, even in the face of danger, even in the face of colonialism, even in the face of being taken out, having to fight lies, but he kept a hold of his discipline. Another result of not having discipline is procrastination. Tasks and responsibility are put off until the last minute or indefinitely, leading to stress and incomplete work. I was the king of this in school. My MO, and I'm still trying to work on. I wait till the last minute and cram. And sometimes it mess around, especially when I was in Princeton, and get a good grade, but put everything onto the last minute when it came to my studies. If it was something else urgent, I never did that with kids. I tried not to do that with Brandy, not with the church. But it came time to study, I would be reading every book except the ones I needed to for class. It's just something that the spirit of procrastination would get me. And this is exactly what it led to. Stress and incomplete work sometimes. And I'll never forget uh, Dr. John, whose last name I forget at Princeton. He was the dean. He And he says, when you don't take time to study properly, you'll try to do everything all at one time, and you'll make bad decisions and mistakes, incomplete. Some of the errors I made, if I would have just took my time, I would have caught the errors. But when it has to be due at 11:59 and this 11:58, you're gonna hit send. Stress and incomplete work. Turn to Philippians 4. I'll pull on this one a lot. Paul's favorite church. He's not supposed to have favorites, but he loved the Philippians. They didn't give him no grief like church at Corinth or at Galatia. He liked them. Philippians 4. Uh, Philippians 4, verse 4. Rejoice in the Lord always. Again, I say rejoice. Let your gentleness be evident to all the Lord is near. Don't be anxious for everything, but by prayer and supplication, make your requests known to God. And the peace of God that transcends all understanding, guard your hearts and your mind in verse Jesus. Finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is of good report, admirable, praiseworthy. Think about such things. Put your mind on what's good. Put your mind on what's lovely. Put your mind on what's admirable. Just don't be thinking in the negative. Don't let the news reporters drag you down to always thinking about what's going wrong, what's going bad. You got to glance at that, but you can't focus on that. Verse 9, whatever you've learned or received, heard from me, seen from me, put it into practice and the peace of God will be with you. Paul says, if you just put it into practice, put the game plan together, and don't procrastinate, then you'll have peace. So you keep waiting, you keep putting it off. Practical life advice. If you keep saying, I'll do it tomorrow, you won't have peace. You'll have anxiety. Don't be anxious. The third aspect of this idea of being a lack of discipline, first, will uh, you lack a routine, you procrastinate, and disorganization. I said feng shui, that's a Chinese concept. Like when you come in a room, the energy is set based upon the orderliness of it. So if everything's thrown around, it means I have a scattered mentality. And some of us will come against that. A person like me who think you can thrive in the chaos, who could, well, when somebody moves something, you got a pile of papers. You can look at my office in the church sometimes. I know they go in there, they're ashamed of me to see stuff everywhere. But I got to work on that, trying to be more organized. So something about the flow and everything is right, that feng shui flows properly. Spaces such as living areas, workspaces, environments get cluttered, making it difficult to find things or stay focused. And that's just not true in our exterior. We can be disorganized in our spirits when we allow cluttering, when we allow too much, when we don't release things, when we don't release energy, anger, bitterness, when we keep ideas of lack, when we hold on to conversations that were 30 years ago that people try to take, and we can't let go of things. It causes us to have a disorganized spiritual life. We have a disorganized theology. So we have to make sure we put everything in its proper place. Put it back where you found it. And some things we need to that are not beneficial to us, some old belief systems, some ways of doing things, maybe old things we got from church culture that no longer serve us. We have to let those things go so we can reorganize our spiritual lives. It works just the same in the material life where we need to put things back and make sure things are in its proper place. Spiritually, it's the same thing. I got two more before I left you. That's what the word I was looking for earlier. Impulsive spending. Like I buy things off impulse. And I'm trying to implement a rule in my life, except when it comes to sneakers, that you sleep on it for 24 hours. I'm gonna purchase something I got to sleep on. So impulsive behavior. Impulsive behavior, we're finding what Paul again in Galatians chapter 5. Galatians chapter 5. We find it. Oh, right. I remember Chicky teaching this when I first got to the church. He was on Bible study. And he handed me this and let me know this is what they're working on. Verse 22 of Galatians 5. But the fruit of the Spirit is love, joy, peace, forbearance, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self control. Against these things, there is no such law. Self control. So I don't do things out of impulse. I don't allow my emotions to drive my life. I drive my emotions. I don't get so mad at people. Uh, Dr. Wayne Dyer said people go through life looking to be offended. And when we look to be offended, we'll find what we're looking for. And lastly, tonight, inconsistent follow through. One of the greatest compliments I got that I try to live out. Uh, One of my writer friends or PR folks I work with on my journalism side of things until you're relentless. I'll stay on it. I try to, that's a quality I try to work on. I want to be relentless, not overbearing. I can fall into that, especially, the girls can charge me that, but I try to follow through. And that's important. Initiatives and projects start with enthusiasm but are abandoned midway through the lack of commitment and perseverance. You don't have no discipline. You won't know how to persevere. You won't know how to keep your word and your commitment. And the greatest way to grow confidence is to always keep the promises you make to yourself. That's how you do it. Discipline. If you can boil it down to one thing, discipline is keeping your promise you made to yourself, knowing the difference between what we want now and what we want most. And I'm closing tonight, brief study tonight, with Matthew 5, not having when we don't have discipline, we'll have inconsistent follow through. And Jesus makes it plain in the Beatitudes. Let's see if I can find it. Where is it? Verse 5, chapter 5, verse 37. All you need to say, let me back up just a little bit, of Matthew 5. Again, verse 33, verse chapter 5. Again, you have heard that it was said to the people long ago, don't break your oath, but fulfill to the Lord the vows you made. But I tell you, don't swear by an oath at all, either by heaven, for it is God's throne, or by earth, for it is God's footstool, by Jerusalem, for it is the city of the great king. Do not swear by your head, for you cannot make it even one hair white or black. Here's the key. All you need to say is simply yes and no. Excuse me. Anything beyond this comes from the evil one. In other words, let your yes be yes and your no be no. That's how we follow through. If you say yes, you commit to it. Try to teach the girls, try to live in front of the girls. When we make a commitment, even when it's no longer fun, even when it gets hard, challenging, we got to see it through. You don't have to go. You don't like uh, uh, the violin anymore. It's fine, but you're gonna see the semester through. because we try to teach them, we try to teach ourselves that it's something we learn when we stick to what we need to stick to. It's not always sexy and cool. Sometimes you just gotta move through it. And discipline helps us to keep moving when the joy is not always there, when everything's not as shiny, when the newness wears off, when the new car smell is not there. Discipline keeps us in the game. God bless you tonight. Join us again next week where we'll tackle another subject of what our challenge is. Go to Facebook and look at YouTube if you missed any of the previous lessons about accepting the challenge of discipline. See you Sunday.